to Bloom in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. I think I got it right this time. So
I think you did.
We're switching it up a little bit. Last time we were doing herbs in Liz's kitchen, and Zach's usually our camera extraordinaire and and production person and director.
Yeah.
Would be all the technical terms, right?
Hi, future me. That's editing this.
Yeah, you better not edit out all the good stuff either.
Yeah.
So I kind of like this because we're gonna mix it up. So Zach and I haven't been on camera before or on these lovely microphones. I was gonna make a very terrible reference. I will not do that on
Actually,
camera.
I'm gonna move that down just a little bit
Move
there
it
for
around,
you.
make it work. Okay, so today we're kind of it's supposed to be 86 degrees today.
I'm feeling it. Liz's phone was feeling it. It just shut off on her.
A little warm. So rewind to Sunday night when it was hailing at 10 o'clock at my house.
Woo.
So welcome to Idaho. That's a thing. There was actually hail on the road in Boise that afternoon too. So, you know, weather's real weird in Idaho this year. Yeah. So today is a perfect day to talk about heat and water, and in turn we're going to talk about food. So kind of something that people always ask me is like, I don't know what to water. I don't know how to do this. You know, what do I do? Right. How many times do people water in the middle of the day, do you think?
I'm pretty sure all the time.
Raising the hand from the back.
I would say all the time.
Okay.
I know I do.
The first thing I'm going to tell you, never water in the heat of the day.
Noted.
All right. So the reason for that.
I'm already starting off on the wrong foot.
Oh, crap. So really, the best case scenario, you know, if you can get something on drip line or a sprinkler system, awesome.
Right.
Now, if you're like me, and don't let anyone from the city of Twin Falls hear this, I'm at water in the middle of the night, right around the middle of the night, so that, you know, there's a schedule. I understand that. But if I water when it's becoming the next day, which day was I really on? And then I am able to get a little more water by stuff. Also, I don't water very long. Right. So I'm trying not to take from the water table. But if you kind of do this correctly, you can actually save water, protect the environment, and you set your plants up for success. So I always water first thing in the morning or late at night. Okay. And so the hottest part of the day is going to be like literally right now, where we're sitting in the greenhouse at 2:30. So from noon to 6 p.m., hottest part of the day. Right. The coldest part of the day is actually not in the middle of the night. Ironically, it's like 6 a.m. That's the coldest part of the day. Really? Don't mind the little kids with the carts. It's the best investment our retail ever made was get carts for small people because they will keep their parents here and have so much fun. There you go. So I always tell people water first thing in the morning or at the end of the evening. The reason for that is you want to set your plants up for success, but the only time you want to water is actually when it's really dry. If it's in the middle of the day and they're completely flagging and they're going to be dead by the end of the day, that is the only time you water in the middle of the day.
One exception.
Yeah, that is the one exception. If it is about to die, you best get the hose out. But also, when you're watering, water at the base. Now, why that's important is when the sun comes down onto the leaves in the middle of the day, it acts as a magnifying glass. And it actually destroys the plant cells, and then it'll cause burn, cosmetic damage, you name it. Wow. It happens. Okay. Like, we already have really high light levels here in Idaho, so it's already a little bit challenging. Yeah. And so it kind of, by making sure that you're not putting the water right on the plant, and if it ends up on the plant, that it's first thing in the morning or in the evening, that's best case scenario all the way around. Yeah. So, as far as heat goes, that's your next factor. So I always kind of am looking at the temperatures through the week. I mean, obviously my job depends on it. Right. But if it's going to be above 75, I got to check the water. If it was windy too, and 60, doesn't matter. If it's windy, you always have to check because that'll dry anything down. So with water, it's kind of really important to have your timing right, but heat's hard on humans, it's hard on pets, it's hard on houses, it's definitely hard on plants. Yep. Does anyone ever see, like, I know that I see this in my house, when it gets hot, things crap out. So having a regular watering and fertilization schedule is so key for that. So first thing I'm going to tell you, don't be afraid to get your hands a little dirty when it comes to heat, because you're going to be sticking your finger down in plants to see if they're wet. Oh. And I'm talking the soil. I shouldn't say plants. So I'm visually, for those who are listening to this, taking one finger and pushing it down.
Just
so you're going to
see somebody with a finger in a cabbage or something.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not sure if I understood what Jennifer was trying to say.
I think it's thirsty. I can't
really
tell.
Sure. And you want to be as consistent as possible. So pick the time that works for you. You know, if you're somebody who's got a busy household and there's always, rugrats running around, but the one time you get peace is first thing in the morning, make it first thing in the morning, because that helps build into your peace ritual as well, right? And then it gets done. Because I'm famous for this. Like, I walked in the door. My kids need this. My dog's got this going on. My husband's got something. The phone's ringing. Like, it is mass chaos.
Right.
Am I going to be expected to remember to do everything? Not a chance. I might not even get a chance to use the bathroom. So build it into the part of your day that's the most consistent, right? So morning for me, every time, that's best case scenario for me. Mm-hmm. And I have really sweet neighbors that they will occasionally try to water my vegetable garden for me. They'll do it in the heat of the afternoon.
Oh, no.
I kindly let him know that the best time to water was the morning the other day. And it's actually worked out quite well, because now our gardens are perfectly wet at the right time. So sometimes it's just communicating that, right? And so don't water in the heat of the day. That's a big thing. Now, there's one component that I always watch pretty closely, and that's shade containers, right? So they're not getting the same kind of heat that a sun area is. And most of us in Southern Idaho at least have a lot of sunny spots. But if you've got one of those old established landscapes with big trees, or an area like on your patio that doesn't get a lot of heat, like right. I have shady patios. So what do I do on watering? So I'll leave town for a week on a business trip and try to leave instructions for the kids and the husband on how to water. Try is the operative word. And I literally have to write it out, like, water everything out here every single day. Check these every other day. So on shade containers, this is the finger trick. You take the finger, you stick it down into the soil. Check if they're wet. If they're wet, don't water them. If they're flagging, which means they're showing you they're thirsty, yeah, they need water. Plants will talk to you. You just have to use your eyeballs, not your ears. That's truly, everybody's got the same tools. This is what I tell my kids all the time. It's like checking the chores when you walk in. Did your kids actually do what you asked them to? And I always tell my kids, I have the same tools you do. I have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 hands, 2 feet. And I mean, if you've got somebody who's, handicapped in the house, be a little careful on how you handle that. So you're a little sensitive.
Some of you might have more or less of those things.
More or less of those things. In which case, those folks are often stubborn and really make it a point to get those things done, because they want to be able to, own the same space, if you will, right? But, be cognitive on, did it blow really hard last night? Do I need to check those plants another time? Right. Your plants will talk to you if you're paying attention. Now, heat and water, we've kind of covered those. Fertilization. Okay, so first thing I'm going to tell you, I am a busy person, and I do not remember to do everything. So
I think that's an understatement.
Oh, my gosh. Well, so I always try to build things into existing habits, right?
Right.
So I try to make sure that I have, hey, if Saturday mornings I'm always playing fetch with the dog on the back patio, which we're going to talk about in our next podcast, but like if that is something I'm always doing, on that day, build a habit into that, because you already have an existing habit, right? So if you're always like, I have coffee and I play on Facebook for an hour first thing in the morning, could you start laundry during that time? Could you water the plants during that time? Do you always have a bill that you pay at that? So like mine, so fertilizing my plants, when I pay the mortgage, I fertilize everything. That's the existing habit. Right? So once a month, I am putting a 30-day granular time release into my plants. Okay, so let's go to some jargon. Okay. Right? So there's...
Hit me with it.
Yeah. There's
what you got?
Fertilizer you put in water, i.e. water soluble. And then there's dry stuff. They're pebbles, basically, but that's granular. Okay? So it's either a dry or a wet. Right? First thing I'm going to tell you, because I'm required to tell you, follow the label instructions. Please, folks. But what Jennifer Moss does is I actually do a 30-day time release through all my stuff. Now, that being said, I don't have a lot of time. There are so many other options to do this. In the greenhouses, we actually fertilize every single time we water. And it's at X amount of parts per million, depending on what time of year, what we're trying to do. Are we trying to flush things out? Are we trying to push blooms? And our basic fertilizer, I think the other day I looked in retail, it was a 13-2-13, and that's your NPK, so your nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And think of it like this is how you have to feed children, you have to feed pets, you have to feed yourself. You also have to feed your plants if you want them to produce. So that's kind of how we do it in here. We're always feeding every time we water. Now, you're not going to have that availability at home, right? How you get around that is you do a granular time release. Let's pick on the municipality pots in Twin Falls, right? So they have a petunia blend, like a combination in there. I've got them on a Jack's petunia feed. That's what they use every 30 days. It is a water soluble. They put it in their big water tanks. That's going to have the chelated iron that's going to keep them green, and it's going to flush a bloom set so that they don't have to deadhead, so they always look beautiful. Right? And that's what most people want. They want something pretty. Now, if you want fruit on your vegetables, what you want to use is actually also a blooming, because you're pushing blooms, you're pushing fruit, right? And every plant blooms in its own way. Even cactus and aloes bloom. Believe it or not, aloes have these really cool orange blooms. They look like almost kind of like trumpet vine, even like the bloom does. It has the same structure. So do succulents, actually, and cactus have beautiful blooms.
Yeah. I've seen the succulent one before.
They're crazy.
Yeah,
they're crazy. So it's just something you have to build into an existing habit, because everybody just, I run into people every day and they're like, oh, I have a black thumb. Like, do you have children? And they're like, oh yeah, I have 3 kids. They're great. This one's doing this one's doing. If you meet a plant parent with no kids or with kids, doesn't matter. And they're like, oh yeah, I have 17 plants in the kitchen. I have 37 in the living room. I might have 3 in my car on the dashboard. Like, they're nuts.
Right.
But they're dedicated to it. So really, it's just understanding that they just need the same regular care you do. And they're kind of a little bit less complicated in a lot of ways. And so that fertilization is just making sure that they have their macros. Did you get fat, protein, and carbs in your diet today? Did you drink water? That's the same thing. Did you get sunshine? A little bit of wind. I always tell when we do tours out here at the greenhouse, I always talk about, what are the things plants need? I think there are 4. So they need air, like air movement. They need sunshine. They need food. They need water. The air movement's really important, because if plants are really close together and moisture gets in there, you've got a perfect environment for mold, botrytis, bugs, critters. And
I never really thought about air movement
being...
Air movement's
huge.
Really?
And it's a really easy topic when you're doing a tour, because you can watch greenhouses opening and closing and ventilation happening, and they're like, oh gosh, this is crazy.
Just all the fans you have through here too.
We have to unplug them before we start podcasts because it's so loud in here. Anytime I film a commercial in here, I have to unplug stuff, because you have to have that air movement. It helps cut down on bugs and disease. It's huge. And so out in your garden, it's natural. Like, I always pick on the rose plant in front of my horseshoe on my driveway. I hate roses. And that's a personal opinion. It doesn't mean that they're not beautiful and all of that, but it is the host plant from the aphids from the elm tree. That is its role for me. That's why the rose is still there. So I know that the aphids like that best. So they're just going to hang out there, and I don't have to worry about the petunias and the passion flower getting them. Oh, man, it's the good stuff. It's like one of my daughters really likes shrimp. The other one's like, I'm not touching that. And if we're at like a family gathering, she will just park herself at the shrimp cocktail and eat the whole thing. And I'm like, hey, yo, homie. Other people need that too. But think of it that way. Like, shrimp is her host plant. Yeah. Like, she wants to eat that. She doesn't care about the carrots and the vegetables. She doesn't even want the brownie. She just wants the shrimp.
One stop. And it's shrimp.
It's simple. And, you can't hate on a girl for knowing what she likes. And then the last piece of advice I would give is just really make sure that if you're going to leave town, that you've got a plan. Is it the neighbor? Is it your grandchild? And what have you bribed the child with so they'll be consistent? And if you're trying to help yourself be successful, set an alarm in your phone. If you use Google Calendar at all, I have a reminder on Saturday mornings, 8 a.m., water plants inside. And it doesn't mean I water everything. It just means I check everything. Right. And with that, did I not cover anything? Anything you can think of in your own gardening?
The only question I have, so you mentioned there was the water soluble.
Yep.
And then the granular. Is there any, when would you choose one over the other?
If I want to see immediate results, I would use water soluble.
Right.
If I am just trying to Band-Aid and maintain,
Mm-hmm.
well, Band-Aid's probably the wrong way. Maintain and build a habit of consistency, I do the granular time race.
Okay.
Now, you can do both, but you can also over-fertilize. So look at the label instructions. Usually it says every 7 to 10 days. If you've got, Sunday is my day in the garden, Saturday is my day in the garden, or, hey, I always do this on this day, right? Build into an existing habit. If you love playing with it and seeing that immediate results, figure out what the ratios of the fertilizer to how many gallons of water is, whatever you're using, and put it in there and water it through. There's also another way that you can feed, especially vegetables. They need organic matter, right? That's what they feed on. That's why when we talked about supplementation in our vegetable episode, we were really talking about making sure that there's living matter for them to feed on. So there's another way you can do that throughout the season, because you are getting into the heat of the battle. So if you are trying to both feed your garden as well as provide it with the right nutrients, you can make something called a compost tea. Right? So get some high-end compost. You don't need a lot of it, and that's why I'm saying high-end. All right? So don't go get cow manure from the neighbor's field. Don't do that.
We want the bougiest pile you can get.
You want bougie poop. And probably
we want the HOA to go. Everyone needs
and
that.
You probably need like the earthworm casting style, or the chicken poop, or the fish poop, or find that option for you, and go talk to wherever you're getting garden stuff and say, hey, I need kind of a higher end compost, and I want to make compost.
I need the back room. I need the good stuff.
I need the stuff you use. And then
who's your dealer?
Yeah. Who's your compost dealer? God, that would be a whole nother segment we could do. There is a gentleman that works over, or used to. He is fire. He's from Argentina. He works at the University of Idaho Extension Agency over in Gooding. He's a compost master. I've never seen a guy nerd out on compost
over
like
compost?
I've seen. Dude, it is his jam. Like, and he knows his stuff. He knows his
That's
poop.
the guy to
well,
know.
He knows his compostables. There we go. He knows his compostables. God, it's so hard not to use a curse word in that. Any of those who are verbiage like a sailor will totally understand what I mean. But he knows his stuff, and he gets off on it. It lights his soul on fire.
Does he do anything on the side with it, or
he does all sorts of stuff. As far as what he's doing now, I'm not sure, but he is the gentleman who's from Argentina that's over at the University of Idaho Extension, and he's just really good at it. But you can actually take that compost tea, you get a 5-gallon bucket, put a couple of handfuls in the bottom, fill it with water, let it kind of soak, and then use that to water your plants. Now, you're going to have the sediment in the bottom. Put gloves on. You don't need to be sifting through anything or anyone's excrement with bare hands. That's not fun for anybody. I mean, unless that's your thing. Hey, you do you.
I mean, we don't shame.
We got somebody's puppy dog coming to visit at the same time.
Oh, hello.
I think this is Jane's dog. We always have critters in the greenhouse. That's what's fun. So what you're going to do is put gloves on, and you can actually take handfuls of that and put it around the bases of your plants. You just do a little handful around each plant. Not a big deal. You don't have to have some for each plant. Put it on the plants that are big that you want performance from. You don't need to put it on every broccoli plant. Don't put it around your lettuce. Then your lettuce is going to taste like compost. That'll be weird.
Yeah.
But you could water with the water. It's still going to put the nutrients into the soil for the plants.
That's what I was wondering. Are you mixing it up at all, or
so you've watered with the water, and then you have the sediment that's left over. Just take the sediment and put it around the base of the plants. Okay. And then it will continue to go into the plants.
Nutrients are soaking
down.
And
you can do that and fertilize. Huh. And you could if you really want some performance, you want to put these on like super steroids.
I want to juice my plants.
Dude, there are some people that are dedicated to their craft. You can do the compost tea. You can do the fertilization with the water soluble, and you can do a granular. Right. I would just make sure when you're doing it that you're getting an even cross section of all the nutrients. You can go heavy on one if you're trying to produce a fruit or a bloom. That's fine. And also remember, depending on your compost, it can burn things. So burn meaning it's too high of alkaline or it's too high of acid.
Oversaturating it.
Exactly. So you kind of want that 5.5 to 6.5 pH range, right? And then you're good to go. I mean,
there's a whole science to it.
Yeah, my side gig apparently is biologist. But
I think you could. I think you could teach a class alone.
I can fake it for a little bit. There are some people that really know their stuff, and I've had people come to me and say, what do I do with coffee grounds? What do I do with eggshells? What do I do with, Epsom salt?
Right.
Not all plants are going to respond to it, but if you've talked to somebody that it's worked, give it a try. What I suggest is try it on 1 or 2 plants, not your whole garden.
Yeah.
Because everybody has different soil. Everybody has different water. Everybody has different conditions. Don't fry your whole garden.
Try it on the first child, see if it works for the rest of the kids.
The wizard down the street 2 doors that's 85. I mean, she might know her stuff, but she might have some secret sauce in the soil already, or she's got something she's combating in the soil that you don't have.
She's from Argentina. She knows
her stuff. She's a compost wizard. That could be it too. I mean, so you're going to... I just, don't always put your eggs all in one basket, right? Just test it on 1 or 2 plants. If you're seeing performance within a week or 2, also, if you fertilize and you do not see, literally immediate results, take a breath, find a book, go on a weekend vacation, make sure you have a watering person or irrigation figured out. Step away before you come back to it because, honestly, it's not going to change overnight, but it will change. You just need to give it a couple of days. Plants take more time to respond. Heat and water will affect them in an hourly basis, but fertilization takes more time. Because if it's going down through the water, because even granular sits on top of the soil, and then you have to water it down, it has to be taken up through the roots from that point.
Right.
And so that takes time to get through the plant. And I think I've covered a lot of it. I've just dumped some knowledge. Somebody's feverishly writing notes right now or going, Steve, I got to listen to this when I get home. But, I mean, that's how I do my garden. And I'm not a person that spends a ton of time in there. I want it to look pretty and walk away.
Well, I'm working on my green thumb. It's a very light shade of green right now. It's pastel.
That's okay. Pastel or chartreuse. Like that chartreuse green?
I like chartreuse.
Chartreuse green.
I like
it's
that.
right
That makes
behind
me
you on
feel
the
good.
Dracaena. Exactly, because it's still green, and it's that limey green that everybody wants.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for watching or listening to Bloom in Full Color. We like to live life in full color because plain is pretty boring. Thank you, guys.